gummy bear.
Zoom! It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for May 4th, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game S Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, May the 4th, is a realer holiday than Flag Day. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game S Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
I'm feeling great. I'm going to wrap Scout in a brown cloth and then color her green and just walk out into the town and deck myself out in some foil. I'll be the Jan DeLorean, and then she will be little baby yogurt.
Yes,
we're gonna have a great time.
That's beautiful. I just looked around the room, see if I could find my Jedi robe, see if it was laying in a pile somewhere. Who knows where it is? It's not over there on the hanger where it normally is. So I've done something with it. I'm sure that it probably needs to be, dry cleaned or whatever. But we'll get those robes on at some point today. We'll see. Jan, how are you planning to celebrate beyond the getting all cosplayed up with your homie?
I will probably play more Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
It's not a bad way to do it.
As I'm playing more of it, I thought that it was a mild hyperbole that people are saying it's the best Star Wars game. But,
it builds.
It builds. And let me tell you, I know that a lot of us have Star Wars fatigue, especially for folks that aren't a fan of the series. But I think I like Star Wars a lot.
Yeah,
Turns out
when I was
Space
playing
Cowboys.
When I was playing it, it was like, oh yeah, just being among the aesthetics of Star Wars is about 80% of it for me. I'm being like, oh yeah, like most games now that are trying to go for a sci-fi setting, they're basically just trying to be Star Wars. Like you look at Apex Legends, it's like industrial used world design. And there's a history there, and that's all Star Wars stuff. That's all stuff that really got kicked off in a big way with Star Wars. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of nice to just be back in this world where that those concepts originated from, and they still kind of do it better than anyone else. The High Republic stuff is like, oh yeah, this is like still Star Wars, but it feels a little bit more pristine, and yet it still has that history to it, and it feels kind of like 1960s movie sets a little bit. And I'm just, I love this. I love everything that they've done here. The idea that they've had so many decades now of building on these design ethos, and yet they're still able to kind of stay true to them while introducing new ideas. It's impressive. And that's like, it's possible because Star Wars can be so many things. It can be so big. And I'm really enjoying that game. It continues to be maybe like what really sets it apart for me is the platforming. How they make such a good platformer with like a dude that you play as. You're just playing as a guy. You're just playing as a fucking dude, and it's like a real good platformer. He's not like a little Mario guy. Like, you watch this game and you realize that's why Mario looks the way he does. He's a squat little guy because he's gonna run the little legs going so fast. He's gonna be able to jump off walls, and it looks cool when Mario does it because he's just this little ball with legs. And it's like then you put a lanky actor with red hair in there, and he's wall jumping and looks like a complete jackass, but I love it. Like, it's really good.
I was doing some of the platforming, and then it's funny that you mention it because he is so lanky. When he does like those kind of twisty jumps, to extend past jumping off of a wall, he does look a little silly.
Oh yeah.
I know that there's been studies that you need a human person to be your player character most of the time for it to appeal to a wider audience.
Right, that human face is super important.
Yes, but you said this or on the Bombcast, right? That Star Wars Jedi Survivor is basically Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that. Yes, because you got the human and the robot on your shoulder and stuff. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind a Star Wars game where the main protagonist was not a human dude.
Yeah, I think it's time. I feel like Star Wars is maybe backing up away from like that's because Andor was so good, and yet it had so few aliens, and it's like, I'm fine because it's so good, but season 2, I hope they up the alien count and embrace that stuff. The cantina scene still is iconic for all those reasons, even when like Wolfman shows up or whatever. And I think that when the first game got announced here, Fallen Order, and that is maybe the whitest protagonist of video games ever seen. And I've really come around on Cal Kestis at this point. But I do it's Star Wars. You could do anything. So why do this when you could just have an alien? And there's like a lot of really iconic alien Jedi from the prequel era that you could have had survive, like Kit Fisto or something. Do a game of Kit fucking Fisto. Yeah, let's get Fistoed. That's what we always say on this show.
Giant Bomb, where have you been? Let's get Fistoed.
Yaddle, Yaddle's another one. So I'm with you. I hope that we get to a point pretty soon where that's what we get. And, they do games where they don't really rely on human faces. They did that Bounty Hunter game with Jango Fett, and it's like there's no human face, it's just a mask. But it's a cool looking mask that everyone really likes. It's like, there's a lot of cool aliens too. So let's just go for it.
May I recommend Grubb, if you got Disney Plus? Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures is a little bite-sized show. Little kids being little Jedis and little pilots. It takes place during the High Republic era, so maybe there's a young Cal Kestis. Specifically, there is one character that I think is coming for Grogu's head, and this character is named Nubs, and he is a little blue Jedi bear. The species that Nubs is he's a poobah. That's just hilarious.
Give me some poobah. I love all my poobahs. That sounds incredible. I keep seeing it on there. I'm like, all right, I gotta the kids know I like Star Wars, and they're like, hey, you like Star Wars and I like Kirby. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I mean, yeah, sure, that's great. I like Kirby too. And when I put Star Wars on, they sometimes give it a shot. Excuse me, they'll sometimes give it a shot. I think with this with that show, you know what? I think we'll actually see a time when I could sit down with them and watch it with them and see if they get into it. But if it's just me watching this children's show, that's fine too. I'm completely fine with that.
Yes, Siegfried, I know that all of those children are dead now.
That's. I mean, listen, Anakin's got to do his thing. He loves his girlfriend so much that children must die. That's
Mitch is the poobah of the team.
Absolutely, Mitch has always been a poobah. All right, let's get into this mess. But before we do, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you're watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into. So let's start the morning mess with Phil Spencer apologizes for disappointing Redfall and claims Xbox was expecting better reviews. This comes from Andy Robinson at VGC. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has apologized for the launch state of its latest big first-party release, Redfall, and claimed that developer Arcane Austin will work on improvements for the game. The first major Xbox exclusive from Bethesda launched this week with a number of technical issues and has generally been reviewed poorly, garnering aggregate scores of 62 for Xbox Series X and S and 58 on PC from Metacritic. At the time of publishing, the co-op shooter has a user score of just 2.6 and 1.9 out of 10, respectively. Addressing Redfall's disappointing reception in a new interview with Kinda Funny Games, Microsoft's head of gaming claimed that the platform holder did not expect such a negative reception to the game, citing internal mock reviews which allegedly suggested it could have received much higher scores. Here's a quote from Phil. "There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. I've been a part of it for a long time. I obviously work on Xbox. I'm head of the business. I have a lot of friends and get a lot of feedback. And just to kind of watch the community lose confidence, be disappointed, I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself. We do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this is double digits lower than where we thought we would be with this game through those reviews. That's one of the disappointing things. We would never strive to launch a game that we thought was going to review in the low 60s. It's not part of our goals. If you look at our review scores from the past year, and this is not a defense at all, I think the teams have done a better job in upping the level of quality of the games that we've shipped. And this game was significantly below our internal metrics compared to where it actually reviewed. But that's not on anybody but us. We have to own that." There's a lot more from this interview that we'll get into, Jan. But does that strike you something like as believable? I mean, they clearly knew some things were wrong with this game. Even a double-digit difference would be like, it's probably in the 70s, from those mock reviews, which are people who don't know. A lot of times companies will hire consultants from external firms to come in and review games and say, hey, what do you think this game's going to get? And they present a review as if they were an external reviewer working on a site and say, hey, this is what reviews are probably going to look like. It's a tough gig because it's hard to really nail that down and understand like what the vibe's going to be when a game launches, and that can sometimes have an effect on the score. But yeah, they apparently they ran a bunch of reviews, and this is way lower than, or the actual reviews were even lower than that. Does that sound like something that's like happening over there?
It sounds like there's definitely a lot. I don't want to say mismanaging, but a lot of cooks in the kitchen at the top versus at the developer level.
Yes, he's going to speak to that. We're going to get to exactly that in this interview, and I think you diagnosed it right there. It's they were pretty hands off with this project. That's been the reporting from Jez. It's what I've heard, that they just that they kind of saw what was going on with Redfall pretty early on when they acquired Bethesda. And they saw that like what it already was, and they were like, okay, well, we're not too excited about this. There's this Starfield project over here. We're going to go work on that. I think that is pretty strange when it's like, it just feels strange because Bethesda has put out a handful of games. 2 of them went to Sony exclusive for at least a year. Deathloop, one of them that many people considered in their top 10 games of that year. And then they finally get one that's just on Xbox, and most people think it's kind of garbage. And it's like, how does that happen? How do you let that happen? And really, that sounds like the way you let that happen is you just let it happen by not really getting involved. That seems to be what happened.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like the best way to get a game up and running. And then now I'm thinking about like the different circumstances that these mock reviewers are under, of like how much time are they actually given, at what stage during the development process, and are they allowed to, review or score these games based off several concessions, right? Like I know sometimes like day one patches come into consideration, not being able to check out different features of the game. So are they already reviewing the game at a bias, which is not helping the development process of this game at all?
Yeah, I'll say that that I think being a mock reviewer would be a pretty tough thing, because it is hard to put yourself in the mindset of what a game's going to feel like when it's out there, when it's actually out there. But the handful of people who I've talked to who have done mock reviews, or the people who I know have done that, there's a handful that are very good at it, and are very good at taking a game in and like, no, this is going to be bad when it launches. This is not fun right now. And those people often get like picked up, like, you're really good at this. We'll have you go work on something else now, and actually like hire you up and put you into a higher role. And then then there's a gap, and there's okay, well, now we need another mock reviewer. So it's like it's a space where it's like, yeah, you get really good at it, and then you probably move on pretty quickly. I think the real thing here is Phil Spencer's right, where he says that's not on anybody but us. These you can't point to the mock reviews and be this is why we put that game out. Even if it's double digit, even if it is like going to be in the mid to high 70s instead of where it's at low 60s on Metacritic, that's still not really great, right?
No. I mean, even bringing up this example of mock reviewers, unfortunately, kind of feels like displacing the blame here, of like, well, we did run it by these people, and not to blame them or anything, but I guess problems were, also on us. And unfortunately, it doesn't give me more confidence for future projects. And I think this is going to leave a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths,
Yes.
On top of having to down all that blood from Redfall and vampires.
Exactly. Which, some people like that taste.
The freaks.
The freaks, our friends. He went on. Spencer claimed that Bethesda and developer Arcane will continue to support Redfall, as Rare has done with Sea of Thieves, as one of the examples he used, which was, of course, another first-party co-op title that was initially criticized at launch. Here's another quote. In terms of our commitment to the game, absolutely, the team at Arcane is taking the near-term feedback. We're still working on the 60 frames per second update. We have a good timeline for that. And we're going to continue to work on the game. We've shown a commitment to games like Sea of Thieves and Obsidian's Grounded to continue to go and build games. Then he said, but I also know that these games are $70, and I'm going to take full responsibility for launching a game that needs to be great. We let a lot of people down this week in the launch of the game, but we will continue to strive on. You have to, that's what creativity is about. Later in the interview, Spencer was asked to reflect on the lessons Xbox could take from Redfall and its launch date. Spencer said that he believes that platform holders should have done more early in the game's development in terms of providing assistance to Arcane and setting expectations for what a first-party game needs to deliver. And this is precisely what I've heard, that they are very hands-off. There's a scene in the Psychonauts 2 documentary where Tim, what's his name over Double Fine? I can't remember. Tim Schafer. When Tim Schafer is like, guys, we need to go ask Microsoft for more money, and he's like stressing out about it. And the documentary plays this bit up a little bit, but they're straight like, hey, we got to go ask for more money. We're going to ask for more support. And they go to Matt Booty and they say, hey, we need more money. And Matt Booty goes, oh, okay. And that seems to be where the involvement is Matt Booty holds the purse strings, says yes to the money, and then the developers go back and work on their games. And that's probably okay for a lot of studios. It seems pretty okay for Double Fine. It seems okay for Arcane when they're working on a game that they believe in. But when it's a game like Redfall, where obviously it lost its place, or lost its path along the way, they aren't stepping in. They aren't providing any assistance. And Phil Spencer's acknowledging that and saying that shouldn't have happened, which is okay. It's easy to acknowledge mistakes, right? It is. And he many times in this interview, he says, my words aren't worth a lot. I understand that people are getting sick and tired of hearing these kinds of words. So if you're never going to believe me until you actually pick up controller and play a game that you really like, that's completely fine with him. But that's right. That's where I think a lot of people are at, where it's going to be hard to believe anything Microsoft's saying until the proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, and the problem is, a couple folks have alluded to this in chat, where it's like, we don't want too much oversight over a studio like Double Fine, like Arcane.
Yes.
Yet these examples pop up, and I think this kind of echoes to a lot of woes that people have been experiencing with Halo, that there just needs to be some direct vision from the top of like, yo, we need to head this way. Quality needs to be up to a certain measure or whatever, because you can only take, and I don't even want to say L's. I just think these are more missteps than anything, because these games will still find an audience, right? There's still people playing Halo.
It did get a 4 out of 5 out of from VGC. It got 8.5 from Xbox Era. There's people who do and seem to enjoy this game. A lot of people are having fun with their friends.
Yeah, people are having fun with their friends. This is going to be a Game Pass game, so this will also appeal to the vampire freakos out there. But it is not hitting as big of an audience as they'd like, I'm sure, right? Yes. That there needs to be some type of direction, so they don't keep making these missteps, because that audience that is coming to these games is dwindling with each release, right? Because people are just losing confidence with each release that doesn't appeal to them. And hey, not everything is going to hit, but some of the stuff has to hit.
Yeah, and I think, he speaks to that, because like, why do we feel like some of this has to hit? Because I think if this was before the Microsoft acquisition and ZeniMax / Bethesda put out a game that wasn't very good, we'd be like, well, okay, fine, we're going to move on. Sure. This is a first party game, and he addressed that. When we acquire studios, there are games that are in development, and then there are things that are really early in development or not even conceived yet. I think we need to improve in engaging with games midway through the production when they become part of Xbox. I do think there's a different expectation for a game and a team when you've been third party and all of a sudden you become part of a first party studio. There's a different expectation in terms of how you're going to perform on our console. And there's a different competitive set when people look at this game and say, hey, I want this game to feel as competitive as another game on another console platform. And we didn't do a good job early on in engaging Arcane Austin to really help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox and part of first party, and use some of our internal resources to help them move along that journey even faster. We left them to work on the game. They're a very talented team. I love that team, and I still do. And I would totally bet on them to do another great game. But basically saying everything that you're saying, Jan, that they need to get engaged in there. And one of the other sides of this is that he's talking about Starfield as well alongside this, where he says that game we have engaged with. I think he's trying to alleviate some concerns. Like, we have engaged with that game because it was a little bit earlier on in the process, and also I think they believed in Starfield, where it's like, it seems like Redfall, they were just like, figure that out. You good luck. And so, well, you kind of, I think you have all the money in the world. You're Microsoft, and for a lot of people, including me, and Spencer also said this. He's like, the resources are not a problem. Well, it's like, okay, then why are they a problem? Why were they a problem with this game? And it seems to be the human resource side of, did someone want to take the initiative of going in there and understanding Redfall and understanding Arcane Austin's needs, and then helping them meet those needs? And it just sounds like none of that happened.
No, and for this to be a first party title, which I forget, to be honest, it is insane. And now I understand more so the outrage of this launching at 30 FPS on consoles.
Yep.
And hey, this is a thought that I've had with Redfall and, other games that have missed the mark outside of Microsoft games, stuff like Gotham Knights, of like, would it just have been more advantageous to just cancel this versus putting it out?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely leaned that way when it first launched, right? Definitely delaying it, right? Yeah, definitely delaying it. But I think that also comes back to, I think Bethesda made that decision because Bethesda felt like they had to take ownership over this thing because Microsoft wasn't. So it's like, well, this is a Bethesda decision, and I guess Bethesda asked, it seems like Bethesda said you had to put this game out, which is weird because, again, all the money in the world. Now, I'm sure there's people at Bethesda that have deliverables and quotas and things and KPIs, performance metrics that they need to pass on to their bosses at Microsoft Gaming. But it's clear that that cannot be the reason you're making decisions when a misstep like this is going to blow up in your face the way Redfall has.
It's just so odd. It's just so odd that a game, and this happens to multiple games. Avengers pops up to my head of like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel fun. And forgive me for saying this statement, but I think games should be fun.
Weird. You're a weird guy, Jan.
Hey, a controversial opinion, hot take alert. But it just seems so wild that a game coming from Microsoft, from one of their first party studios now, comes out like this. It's not even a full. It's not even like a beta or
early access. Which
early access.
It's a $70 game, Jim. That's what it is.
It's a $70 game. It doesn't matter that it's on Game Pass because some folks don't have Game Pass.
A lot of people would buy it on Steam, where it's I think it's straight up a $70 game on there. Like, yeah. It's just wild, Grubb, and this happens all the time. Look at Pokemon also. But at the same time, just like, yo, Microsoft, you don't have like the Pokemon cachet here where you can launch a terrible game. This is something new, especially from a studio like Arcane that has a pretty good track record. Your first big AAA game in literally years. like it's been like literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Like, what is the last one? Was it Halo Infinite?
Yes.
It can't be
Halo.
Halo.
Yes, it was. I mean, listen, I think Hi-Fi Rush is a AAA game, in my opinion. But
sure,
they did not position it as one. It's definitely not a $70 game. It's a $40 game. So they don't.
It was a happy accident.
Right. Like, it definitely lives. I think it's a AAA game, but that they don't. And so if we're operating under their own sort of positioning of their games, they've not had another full price game launch that's like, big AAA level since Halo Infinite. I love Pentiment. I love Hi-Fi Rush, but those games are something else than what we're talking about here.
Yes. Also, like, those games are not, I'm going to say, is not, specifically with Pentiment, not aimed to reach as massive an audience as a game like Redfall. Pentiment is a single player experience. Sure, you could stream it to friends or stream it to your audience, just like reading through it.
It's a nerdy game. Like, it's a game for nerds. I know because I like it. Yeah.
Okay. Marino mentions Forza Horizon. That's the other game I was thinking in my head. But like Forza is I don't know.
Yeah, Forza.
Right, this bugs me out, and I feel especially bad for Arcane.
Yeah, I mean that they. I think you could see that Phil Spencer kind of is having a little bit of that guilt as well. He said we should have been there for Harvey, talking about Harvey Smith, the Redfall co-creative director, who has a incredible track record. And then he says, and the team earlier. We should have been there for the team earlier. I think that's on us. And then through the process, this is an Unreal Engine game. We have a bunch of studios that have done some really great work on Unreal over the years, and I think we were too late to help in that when they had certain issues. Like again, 30 frames per second on Xbox in an Unreal Engine 4 game, and you know, all these studios are busy, but this is your first big AAA $70 game. I think it's their first $70 game because they were switching to $70 from $60. Your first $70 game, and you're not going to bring the coalition over to come help and make sure this game runs at 60 frames per second. Maybe you did, but it sounds like you did it too late, and that's something that should have been identified earlier and dealt with. And that's like, it's very easy to say that should have been found, but it should have been. Where are the processes to ensure that those things are identified? And he is blatantly saying they did not exist, and that's something that they're rethinking now.
It's like I don't know. I feel like when you should throw the resources at them when they become part of your system. If you bought them, use them.
Yep. And it's like, you know, the 30 frames per second is only one small issue. The game still has underlying gameplay problems, but like that's just one more piece of the pie. Like that's one more thing you could have at least fixed.
It's like if you were to acquire a company and they still had to use their old email system versus, here you got a company email. It's cool. It's like, okay, stuff will still work, but stuff's going to get missed along the chain.
Yeah. And that's, it's Crooked Views in chat says, hey, Phil seems pretty cool during interviews, but is there any kind of behind the scenes reputation he has of being a hard ass that you're aware of? The one thing I'm aware of that he does is he sets very high expectations. But that, like, clearly that often they don't live up to those expectations. And then is there any sort of falling out from that? It doesn't seem like it. So I know the reputation I hear internally of overall management at Xbox is a sort of a laissez-faire attitude towards anything that they've acquired, which is letting them sort of operate on their own. It's like it's absent more than it's incompetent, but at a certain point, absence becomes incompetence, and it seems like that seems to be the case of what's happening there.
Nailed it on the head. And it just, why even acquire these studios?
Yeah.
Why even acquire these studios if you were not going to properly use them? And I know that, like, I say that, and of course there's the capitalism exact thing of like, well, we gotta get them so no one else gets them. Their games only come out on our platform, so you gotta buy an Xbox. And like that's part of the reasoning, but also the reasoning in my head is like, yo, dog, you let Arcane cook, but let them cook with your tools. Put them in the nice kitchen.
Yeah, make sure that they're aware that there's a nice kitchen. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yes. I think you bringing up the Tim Schafer example of like, yo, if you need more resources, just ask for the resources.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, unfortunately, with a laissez-faire type of attitude from the top, that isn't always communicated to everyone else below them.
That's right. You got to have the high ground to take out Anakin Skywalker. I'm so sorry.
You were the chosen one.
You were the chosen one. He says one thing he'll fight back against. He's like, okay, yeah, but people are right to criticize the game, but one thing he'll fight back against is that while there's clearly quality and execution things that they could do better, one thing that he will push against is the creative aspirations of his teams. I know a lot of people will say, hey, you've got teams. Teams know how to make one kind of game. Just force them to go and do that one kind of game that they're good at, that they have a proven track record with. And he says, I'm just not a believer in that. Maybe that means I'll underdeliver for some of our fans out there. But when a team like Rare wants to do Sea of Thieves, when a team like Obsidian wants to do Grounded, and when Tango wants to do Hi-Fi Rush, when everybody probably thought they were doing The Evil Within 3, I want to give the teams the creative platform to go and push their ability, push their aspirations. And I think he's right to identify that as that should continue to be important, because I think Hi-Fi Rush and even Grounded and Sea of Thieves, all of these are really good examples of these teams finding new ways to express their themselves and express their creativity. And Redfall is a misstep on that, but it doesn't seem like it's a misstep because that's a bad idea of letting studios express themselves. It just seems like something else went wrong. Something else got spoiled along the way. Yeah.
I think I asked this during the bombcast, but I don't know if it is worth trying to salvage Redfall.
Well, I mean, he's at least implying that they are going to treat it like Sea of Thieves. I don't know how serious that is. Like, does that mean, because Sea of Thieves has been supported constantly for years now?
Yeah.
That seems, I don't think that's a great idea. But I mean, again, if they probably feel like, and a lot of people said this is the poll question from yesterday. We'll get to it at the end, like the response. Most people responding to that were like, it's going to be hard to trust a studio with their next game if they launch something like this and then do nothing to get it into a shape where it feels like a fun game. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but man, fun in this game seems so far away. And it is not a matter of 60 frames per second. It is a matter of so many changes to how it works that that like you basically are developing another game inside of this. And yeah, it's happened before. We've seen,
Yeah.
I mean, but not everything can be Final Fantasy 14: A Realm Reborn. It's just that is so much work.
That is, I don't think that's something to aspire to either, because it took them a very long time. And you look at a success story like No Man's Sky, and that wasn't smooth sailing for a very long time.
Right. And that game has an advantage of being a massive success out of the gate financially to fund all that stuff. And it's like, this is going to be probably a disappointment financially. And then how you justify that? I don't know. Again, it seems like Phil Spencer's going to be out there like talking about this stuff. So we'll continue to kind of prod him with these questions when we get a chance. But it's like, we'll see. Let's get to the other side of this interview real quick. Xbox didn't deliver on 2022's showcase, but Phil Spencer is enthusiastic about this year's. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has stated that the company failed to deliver on what it showed during last year's showcase presentation, but says he's very enthusiastic about this year's show. Speaking to Kinda Funny Games Xcast, Spencer said, was asked by Paris Lilly about the previous Xbox showcase, which took place in 2022. Paris said, last year during the showcase, you had the 12-month plan. You didn't necessarily deliver on all the games. And then Spencer stopped him and said, no, we didn't deliver. There's no necessarily we didn't deliver. Spencer was then given a list of upcoming games that Lilly said players still don't know much about despite having been announced long ago, including Avowed, Perfect Dark, Everwild, Fable, State of Decay 3, and Contraband. Going on to discuss this year's showcase, Spencer said, I'm not going to try to oversell the showcase here, but if I was on the other side watching it like this, and I would say, hey, after Redfall, I'm going to put my hands on the controller, and that's what it's going to take to prove it to me. But that's not what the showcase is, so I'm very enthusiastic about the showcase as what it is. We're going to announce some things that people haven't seen, some new games, and we're going to give updates on some of the things that were on your list. He added, the other thing that gets me really excited is when I look forward over the next quarters, which has always been my focus. How do we get a big game out every quarter at quality? That things are lining up finally after some of the slowdown after COVID is exciting to him. He also acknowledged, Jan, during this, is like, people always hear, well, yeah, just wait for the next Xbox showcase. He's also saying that he understands that people do want to just actually play the games to believe what they're putting out there. But with all those caveats in place, what do you think? Can this Xbox showcase that we know is coming up June 11th, 10 a.m. Pacific time, as they confirmed yesterday, can begin to sort of turn the current backsliding of momentum for Microsoft around?
I don't know. I mean, I would think that like shadow dropping stuff could be an interesting move, but I don't think that'd be advantageous for them in this. I also don't think like opening the showcase with an apology for missing the mark is effective either. It's a difficult task here, but the quote that resonates with me that you read, Grubb, is like Phil saying he needs to put the controller in his own hands. And I don't think that should be on Phil. Phil is doing his job. He needs to direct the people to actually put controllers in the hands that should be checking the games out. Proper QA, looking at all this stuff. And, apologies are great, but I need actual action here. Yeah. Sometimes, like, you don't need to apologize. Just do the thing.
Right. We are. I think that is... It's good that he's still out there talking about these things. It's better than nothing.
Of course. Yeah.
But it does start to feel pretty repetitive, and it starts to feel like it is... we've done this song and dance a bunch of times. And hey, Phil, you know what? You are good at it. I legitimately believe that you are good at this part of the job.
He's convincing me.
I'm very convinced. I am. But but then I do go put my hands on the controller, and suddenly all that I'm no longer convinced. And I've definitely kind of held that. I usually hold that feeling about most showcases and things in general. It's like nine out of the 10 games that you show me, even if they look very cool, I'm kind of pretty cool on, because I'm like, I know eventually I'm going to play these things, and that's when I'll decide actually how I feel, and that's what really matters. Microsoft is kind of far beyond that, where people are sick and tired of hearing just wait till next year. And 2023 was what, you know, we've said for a while on this show. We've been doing this show for a while, and then on Grubb Snacks before it, 2023 was going to be the make or break year for this Xbox strategy. And right now it feels like it's breaking. And then you have two things that might be able to stem that flow a little bit. And it is the Xbox showcase, but that's not people playing games. That is more promises. So that really can't fix it. That could just begin to maybe make people feel more positive and set people up to enjoy Starfield, which, if it is a big game of the year contender, can move the flagpole a little bit. But yeah, it's putting it all on one game from a studio that often puts out games that have issues at launch. That is going to be, it's a risk. It's another risk, and it feels like that's where they're at, though.
Yeah. Like, I understand that concessions need to be made, but it feels like you're purposely drilling a hole in the boat while it's already taking on water. And I'm no boatist here, but I don't think if there's water in the boat, you should allow for more water in.
I'm against water in the boat too, Jan. I'm glad that we're on the same page there. All right,
but what do they do? Like, what do they like? I don't know what they do.
I mean, honestly, the answer is make good games, and everyone knows that, and it's like, I mean, everyone's been waiting for it, and it hasn't been happening. So then we end up in these situations like, well, you know, what are they going to do instead of that? It's like, well, that's not really an option. If you're going to have a video game platform, you have to be making good games. You have to be making great games, because in any situation where you were asking people for an upfront investment in hardware, they are always going to be thinking, how are you justifying me spending that money? That is always going to be a subconscious mathematical equation in the back of everyone's head. I spent $500 on this. Is this game worth that $500 plus whatever it cost me, or whatever I'm paying for Game Pass? And, you know, Game Pass does mitigate some of that. Like, that lower monthly payment help, and I get a lot of games. That it helps with that equation a little bit. But in the back of the mind, everyone's still saying, I invested in this. What's the return? And the return needs to be greater. It needs to feel significantly greater than the investment I made up front. And Microsoft has not met that almost at all. And when they have put out big games, they've come with their own issues that make people question the investment overall. And Halo Infinite being maybe the biggest example of that. All right, let's try to catch up, man. That was a lot of talking about Xbox. Let's move on here. Jan, Pokemon Go monthly earnings have plummeted to their lowest in 5 years. There's two parts to the story, everybody, so stick with me if you want to rush with your corrections. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. Pokemon Go saw a large dip in revenue last month, with earnings dropping to the lowest they've been in more than 5 years. As reported by MobileGamer.biz, Niantic's game saw monthly revenue of $34.7 million in April, making it the 12th highest grossing mobile game worldwide. While this appears positive, however, the site notes that this is a sharp drop from compared to March with its $42.8 million in revenue, which itself was a notable dip compared to $57.9 million in February. MobileGamer.biz notes that the game's revenue appears to rise and fall each month as new in-game events are launched, but that a drop of 40% over a 2-month period is nevertheless uncharacteristically steep for a consistently popular game. Jen, before we dive into this and I ask you about like your feelings about Pokemon Go after someone who played it a lot, Pokemon Go developer denies that its earnings have dropped to a 5-year low. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. This is an update to that story. Pokemon Go developer Niantic has denied claims that the app's monthly earnings have dropped to a 5-year low. On Wednesday, App Store analytics firm AppMagic claimed that Niantic's game saw monthly global revenue of $34.7 million in April. It claimed that this was down from $42.8 million, blah, 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 all the numbers. Niantic replied saying, "We generally don't comment on third-party estimates of our revenue as they are often incorrect." And it's a point to note, almost every time you hear something about a mobile game, it's a third-party estimate. There's some good ones out there. I think Sensor Tower continues to do good work. The rest of them seem pretty iffy. Which they said, which is the case here in terms of it being incorrect. Our revenue so far in 2023 is up on last year, they claimed. While the studio didn't deny that April's revenue was lower than the previous month, the spokesperson added, "We don't focus on month-to-month trends because they fluctuate based on major live events." Um, Jan, okay, let's say that the game is doing fine, but that the numbers are trending downward. Let's just say that's happening. Does that reflect your understanding of where the Pokemon Go community is at, or have you completely checked out?
Mildly checked out. I think part of my own guesstimations here is Niantic has made a lot of boneheaded moves as to how they are trying to monetize the game
Yes, it
and
seems that way.
attract players. A major thing that helped during the pandemic when, folks, it just generally wasn't safe to go outside and be around large groups of people. Pokemon Go is a game that depends on going out at least. Was the remote raids, and remote raids were a godsend because you could send a remote raid request to a friend that is on the other side of the country, different continent completely, or you could safely raid from your car if folks are around. And I personally thought this opened up the game in a different way because raiding originally, depending on where you lived, if you lived in a major metropolitan area with a lot of players, hey, gamers are shitty. A lot of people were gatekeeping raids, surprisingly enough.
Sounds fun.
And especially if you're just trying to play the game casually and have fun and just, collect the Pokemon to increase your Pokedex, etc. Incurring these types of people does not make the game fun. But the remote raids where you kind of just had to raid with whoever was around or send a raid request to a buddy, that was great. And then came, sorry, partners just bemoaning Pokemon Go.
Your partner is Wilhelm, apparently, with the scream over there. It sounded exactly like the Wilhelm
okay?
scream.
But like they've introduced specific raids for event Pokemon that you can't use remote raids for. So you've conditioned people to get used to a feature in a game, and then you suddenly take it away. Tell them like you have to pay this much money to get this Pokemon, but you have to physically go here now. And hey, a lot of lifestyles have changed because of the pandemic, right? Trends are going to change, and sure, there are people that are continuing to spoof the game of Pokemon Go. But on top of making boneheaded decisions like that, like reducing remote raids and other stuff, where hey, there's like 800 Pokemon, we're still going to stick you with the same, with 4 or 5 generations of them, and we're going to arbitrarily hold back all of these other ones. It just stops being fun after a while.
Yeah. I mean, speaking to your point, a lot of the stories I read about this, people brought up that the remote raid passes getting limited felt and getting increased in price felt like a disability tax because it's like it disproportionately affects people who can't leave their house either due to physical disability or being immunocompromised, and them still being worried about catching COVID. So it's I'm like I try to figure out like, wouldn't it be, don't they make more money if they have the remote passes like available to everyone, just buy them? It seems like they would make more money. So there's a philosophy here where like in the long run, people going out and spending time together is going to create engender more excitement about Pokemon Go in the long term. Maybe they believe that. Otherwise, it continues to feel pretty weird. All that said, 30 million plus per month for anything is a lot of money. They're making a lot of money. They're doing fine.
Hail Adilos, sorry if I said your username wrong. Actually, that thought crossed my head recently of like, does Niantic make more money using geolocation data in selling that off versus remote raids?
I mean, I would say they definitely make a lot of money from selling data. Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, that especially Pokemon Go, that data of how people move through spaces, where foot traffic is almost certainly worth a fortune. I mean, we see a lot of business models, and a lot of them are, podcast advertisers and stuff like that, where it's like, hey, there's free service where we'll help you with something and we'll get you deals on things, and it's free. And so why is it free? Because understanding purchasing data is very valuable, but understanding the way people move through the world is a hard thing to track unless you have volume the way Pokemon Go does. That data is almost certainly just yes, having people go out and move, like, that's going to be super valuable. And we know corporations care about those sorts of things as well.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh God. And hey, speaking from someone that is into Pokemon, it's just like there's just aspects of the game that have not been changed um in years. So as as someone that's, likes Pokemon battling, that aspect of Pokemon Go has never appealed to me because it's just tapping on a screen. And then like the rewards are just so inconsistent. And events will come and go, and it will be unclear whether or not, okay, is this a community day that is free or do I have to pay for it? Also, the community days used to be a huge thing, but now like hours are limited, or the specific Pokemon that are available aren't useful or valuable. They used to be rarer Pokemon, but now it's just like, oh, cool, here's Charmander for like the 25th time now. Um, it just, yeah.
Get fucked, Charmander. Um,
That's right. Charizard's overrated. You heard me.
let's see. I'm like gonna start skimming through some of these other news stories. Jan, I'm gonna jump down to the Discord story. Discord is making some big changes to usernames. This comes from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. In a new blog post, Discord is outlining the major changes it'll make to its username system, meaning you won't have to remember your 4-digit discriminator anymore, but you will have to choose a new username. I really like my 4-digit discriminator. It was 0047, like Agent 47, and it just, randomly picked that. So I'm like, oh man, that's cool. According to Discord's yeah, I'm like, now I got to choose a name, and I don't know if I'm going to get in there. If they let me choose early, I'm going to choose McDonald's. That's going to be my username. According to Discord's post, while initially the 4-digit discriminators were a good solution when the service was just beginning, due to the sheer size of the user base now, another method was needed. And so instead of your one username with 4 numbers attached to the end, you'll now get to choose a unique username, which can contain numbers and some punctuation too. This will be combined with a new display name, which isn't unique, but will feature front and center on your profile. And they have examples of that or whatever. This is weird. I always thought like the discriminators, the 4-digit code at the end would make it so it's a lot easier to maintain, but apparently it's causing problems for them. I am not smart enough to understand what those problems could possibly be, though, Jan.
As someone that has been looking at the back end of this website and looking at XML codes and all that jazz, I can tell you, I don't know shit. I don't know shit, Grubb. So, hey, I guess if these numbers are more complicated, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss mine because mine has 69 in it. And, nice.
But Mike Minotti's trying to own me in chat, saying, by the way, Jeff thought his number was 47 because he was the 47th person to get the name Jeff Grubb. And I don't think that is an insane thing to think. That is just a normal thing to think. I hate you, Mike. Rockstar Table Tennis was a middle figure to EA. In a recent interview with IGN, Rockstar founder Sam Houser talked about how the studio wanted to do something radically different that demonstrated the possibilities of the new generation of consoles, and had this to say: "We absolutely love table tennis and wanted to try and make something that could show the audience what could possibly be the next generation of video games. However, that doesn't seem to be the whole truth, and Jamie King, who was also a co-founder of Rockstar, mentions that the game was mainly created to demonstrate the power of their new Rage engine, which later became the basis of Grand Theft Auto 4, 5, Red Dead Redemptions 1 and 2. King also said Rage was created primarily in response to Electronic Arts buying Criterion and their renderware engine, which Rockstar had used to create Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. Rockstar was not the least bit keen to suddenly start paying licensing fees to renderware, especially to what was at the time one of their biggest rivals. In an interview with Time Extension explaining his reaction to the news of the takeover, King said, "I was in Rockstar Vienna working on the ports for Max Payne for consoles, and I got off the plane and Sam's like, fucking EA's just bought renderware. We need to make our own engine, sort it out." So I'm like, cool, okay. And so one of the reasons, I know it sounds like a Hauser, right? And so one of the reasons that we loved Rockstar San Diego was they had an amazing exporter, and we loved Midtown Madness. So we brought the people from Rockstar Vienna and Rockstar North to San Diego, and we created Rage. So I helped build that initial team and the beginnings of the next-gen engine that Rockstar still use today. And then we go to Japan and play the PlayStation 3 before anyone else. And it was just a big silver box with a red button, and he talked about how that was difficult to work with. But basically, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, that's how things happen in this industry. Someone's like, I don't want to give EA money. We got to go make our own thing. And that's how decisions actually happen. I always liked table tennis, Jan. I don't know about you. How do you feel about it?
I loved it. I felt seen as someone that did table tennis as a sport as a child.
Ooh, very cool. I I really only ever played it in the FedEx break room when I worked at the Columbus sorting facility. But we played it pretty seriously. And big guy from South America would always destroy me. He was just complete. He had an incredible backhand, which just make me miserable.
I felt cool because I held the paddle the other way around.
I did too. I did the little pin hold. Yeah, I really.
Yeah.
I just saw a picture of it. I'm like, I'm gonna try that, and then I got into it. It was a lot of fun. All right. Reggie Fils-Aimé threatens to murder someone. I'm sorry, that's my own headline, but this comes from My Nintendo News. Unfortunately, avoiding any of the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom spoilers has become a lot more difficult recently. The game has leaked more than a week before it was supposed to release on Nintendo Switch, and there's a lot of spoilers out there now. It hasn't helped either that it's become impossible to pirate. That has become possible to pirate the game before the game has been released. Some people on Twitter have even been posting that they've pirated the game, including one particular user that tweeted out a picture of their Switch with the game ready to go. Their tweet resulted in a response from former Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé, where he quoted the movie Taken. Let's see what I got. Yeah, that's he's just gonna threaten somebody here. I'm a huge.
He knows
fan
he
of
doesn't work there anymore, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He says, "I don't know what you want. What I do have are a very particular set of skills I have acquired over a very long career, skills that make me a nightmare for people like you." Yes, quoting Liam Neeson from Taken, who then goes on to kill that person he's talking to and saying that to. So, honestly, I would never want to do anything that would make Reggie say this to me. I would be pissing my pants. I'd be pee and pooing in my pants, Jan. So,
I want to fight him.
I think you could take him.
The thing is, like, I know that he has the reach on me and the height on me, but I'm just going to go for them ankles, baby.
He's 8 feet tall. Yeah. Yeah, right. If you get down there in that lower atmosphere where he can't see through the clouds, you're going to be good.
Hey, influencer boxing is a big thing right now.
It is,
you know?
Don't worry,
Reggie. I'm also self-conscious. I'll box with a shirt on too. If that is a thing that like you're thinking about, don't worry. I'm worried about my jibbly jabblies hanging out as well. I'm not saying anything about Reggie Fils-Aimé and his physique.
No,
I'm just saying if that is something.
You're giving him permission to feel however he needs to feel about his own body. Of course, that's fine.
Yes.
All right. Lastly, I got just a Jeff Grubb Summer Game Fest calendar update now that we got some times for some of these things. Summer Game Fest is June 8th. Time still to be determined on that, but that's going to be in the evening. What's that?
It's June 8th?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we are about a month away from Summer Game Fest. That's the live show. The time on that is to be determined, but it'll probably be in the evening like normal. Probably like 5 or 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's why I started like answering those emails. Shit, I'm like, shit, we got to start planning this actually. Xbox Game Showcase is June 11th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. The Starfield Showcase will begin immediately after that on the same day. The PC Gaming Show, which has been an annual thing now, is returning. That's going to be on June 11th as well, but the time for that is also to be determined. The next day, Ubisoft Forward, June 12th. We've known about this for a while. Going to be 10 a.m. Pacific time. There will be then an Xbox Game Showcase Extended Showcase on June 13th. So that will be the Tuesday, I believe. That is also starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then in August, we get Gamescom Opening Night Live, August 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
It looks like we're all taking July off sick.
Yes, yeah, right. July is everyone's going to be going on, what's it called? Siesta? When you take a break during the middle of the day. That's our middle of the year siesta.
Beautiful.
Man, I love a good siesta. When I went to Spain as like a 15-year-old, and we would I tried to go to the store, and it's like, no, they're just off for 2 hours. They're going home and they're drinking wine and having sex, and they'll be back later. It's like, oh, it's country rules. They got to all figure it out. All right, let's get to the poll from yesterday. Do you think Arcane should try to fix Redfall or move on to something new? 60.5% think that they should move on to something new. 39.5% say fix Redfall. I suppose if they begin putting out updates that legitimately do make the game more fun, that number will shift. But right now, I tend to agree with people who say, you fired it, now forget it, let's get to something else. It seems like you never believed in it, so why believe in it now? Like, that's how I feel. But I mean, Jan, that you were saying earlier, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I just don't think it's worth it. Time is valuable, y'all. Yeah.
Oh, Shadow Man Dark Legacy reveal trailer. What the hell is this? It's a new.
Oh,
a new Shadow. Is this a new Shadow Man? Duel against Legacy, duel against the horrifying cast of enemies and challenging visceral combat. Oh, the combat's going to be visceral, Jan. Clash with the fanatical brethren cultist, from hammer-wielding brutes to sorcerous necromancers, and battle truly wretched creatures that have slithered forth on the blah, blah, blah. It's coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X and S, Steam, and Epic. And it's going to have RPG-like character progression. There you go, everybody. There's your Shadow Man Dark Legacy update. I'm gonna put up a new poll, Jan, for tomorrow. Because tomorrow's Friday. We're gonna have a dregs day with Tam. In the meantime, though, why don't you tell people what's happening on Giant Bomb while I get that written up?
Oh, I just thought of the worst thing I could inflict on myself, so I don't want to say it out loud.
Oh no.
Shadow
Jan. I said it. I figured it. I cracked the code.
You son of a bitch, Grubb. I swear to God.
I mean, those games are fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Tell your partner I didn't mean it.
God, what's happening today? After this, not immediately after, but a couple of minutes after, we have a Blight Club. Dan Reichert is out, so it would not be right to continue the Blight Club proper. So Robo Mitch is charging up for the week and may charge up for... No, next week will probably be fine.
We should be fine for next week, for Blight Club, at least.
We got an episode of Voicemail Dump Truck today with a special guest. Tomorrow, another episode of Game This Mornings, as I said, and UPF, where we will probably be playing Redfall, but maybe we'll box some butts instead.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see how we're feeling.
Yeah, we have a quick look up of Redfall, the Backlard Dan checked out. So maybe that's all the video we need.
Yeah, okay.
Of the game.
We'll get butt boxing downloaded, at least, at the very least. So we'll see. Yeah. That looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, the archive of yesterday's McGrubber stream will go up on the site, as well as a quick look of Disney Speed Motor Storm.
You got it, close enough.
Worms. There we go. Yes, and we'll check out some games. Maybe we'll do some different stuff for UPF. We'll see. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
But then with like Redfall, it's like I could tell people want to see people play it and hate it. And that's the trend. I feel like by Friday, people are going to be over that. I feel like by tomorrow, people have all moved on from that. Like, it's fun to dunk on this. And tomorrow, be like, what's that butt punching game all about? Turns out it's butt punching butts. So, okay.
Yeah, it's I don't want to. It may not be the best use of all of our time.
Yep,
including the audience.
All right. The new poll. Are you still playing Pokemon Go? Yes, no, never played. That is live now. You can find that on Twitter. Jan, should we start just regularly putting these on YouTube? Should we?
I could put these on YouTube.
We're gonna have a little transitionary period here, people, where we'll put them on both. Answer on YouTube. I think beginning tomorrow, I'm gonna bring up the YouTube version instead. So, and then going forward, at some point, we'll just put them exclusively on YouTube. I think we'll see. Kind of go with what's easiest.
The only downside is I don't believe there is a timer on these, so people can continue to keep voting. But
that's fine. That's fine. At a certain point, the deadline will just be like when we answer it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. That we're going to talk about that on Giant Bomb tomorrow. Jan already listed all the stuff that's going to be happening on Giant Bomb. Tune back in for Game Mess Mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Until then, Jan, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games.
Yub nub.
And thank you, everybody. You're the best audience in gaming. Till next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and may the 4th be with you.